Everyone, it's James from Hnry. Today I'm going to walk you through creating a Hnry account and show you around the app. So first things first, we just need to put in an email and a password to get started. In the top right here, you'll notice I'm in Hnry, New Zealand, but I could just as easily flick over to Hnry, Australia, and the sign-up process is much the same. So what I'll do is just create a test email here. Read the service agreement and click Get Started. So the whole process of signing up to Hnry usually takes around 60 seconds, and we'll go through each of the steps now. All right, so if we look first things first, we're going to set up our profile. And so we'll just be asked a few really basic questions around who we are and what we do. So first off, put in first name, last name. There we go, it's me. And then say how we heard about Hnry. So maybe an accountant or financial advisor told us about Hnry. Once we've selected that, we're off and away. We just click next there. So there are about 4 steps, I think, to the sign up here. So it's really quick. The next thing, we're just going to be asked what kind of work we do. So we have a huge list here of lots of different types of jobs you can type down. So if I could look for business analyst, perhaps if a job didn't exist on this list and you do something that we don't have on our list, there is just an option for other. You can select that and type in the name of the job that you do. So the first question that comes up is whether or not you're registered for GST. So obviously you don't have to be registered for GST to use Hnry. It's completely optional. If you've already registered for GST previously with the ATO or with IRD, then you select yes here. But for me, I'm not registered for GST, and that's fine. So I just click no. Now, the first thing we're going to ask is about your estimated income for the year. So this is just so that we, for the first couple of pays that come through your account, we can kind of roughly estimate what your tax rate's going to be before the Hnry system takes over to dynamically adjust your tax rate throughout the year. So if we start off here, I'll put in an estimate of $50,000 for this year. It's fine if that's not necessarily 100% accurate. It's literally just a starting point. So you just need a rough estimate across all your income sources as to what you think the total income you're going to earn is. That includes whether you have a salary job at the same time, which I don't, but I do have a student loan. So this is just to get some really early setup done. Once you start using Hnry properly, it all gets taken care of automatically, and all the income forecasting is done for you. But this is just a starting point, so we have a rough estimate of where you think you're going to be earning. Okay, so some people may have a registered business, a registered company that they trade through. It's obviously not required to have a registered company if you want to earn money independently, but some people do. I don't. I'm not the director of a registered company, so I can just click no. And the next question is about clients. So in Hnry, you have a list of clients that might be paying you. When you sign up, you might already know who it is that's going to pay you. You might not. You might just be signing up in the hope of earning some income in the future. But if you do know, you don't need one to get a Hnry bank account. If you do know who your clients are going to be, you can just click yes here and type in the name of the client. Now, see this question here, does this client deduct tax prior to payment? So sometimes in New Zealand, you will find clients who deduct what's called withholding tax. They might be asked to deduct a rate of income tax before they pay you. And that's really just the first part of just your income tax. That doesn't include any other taxes. You will know your client will tell you if they are required to deduct this first bit of your tax. But in the majority of cases, it doesn't apply. So I can just click no. And I also need to note whether or not this client is outside New Zealand or outside Australia equivalent, and whether or not GST would be charged. So in this instance, this client is within my home country, so I don't need to check this box. And I'm all set. That's literally it. I can, if this was a live environment, I would get my Hnry account details right here in front of me that I can then go on to pass on to my clients, and I can go on to start using Hnry. It's really that simple to get up and running. So let's take a quick tour. Now that we've got our Hnry bank account details, we'll take a quick tour of the app and just take a look through some of the basics of what we've got here. So you'll see on the left-hand side, you've got your sidebar menu. And this is where you access most of the things that Hnry has to offer. So you've got quotes, for instance. If you're someone who has to create quotes to your clients, you can generate a quote here, send it to your client. They can approve it online. You can then convert it into an invoice. Not everyone needs to raise quotes, but it's a really great feature if you do need it. Then you have invoicing. Now, invoicing in Hnry is completely optional. You don't have to send invoices to your clients if they don't need an invoice in order to pay you. You can just directly pass them your Hnry bank account details and they can pay into your Hnry bank account from there. But we'll go through in a second. We'll create an invoice and I'll show you how that works. Really simple process. It takes around a sort of 60 seconds or so to set one up. So here's our clients page. You can see we already have a client here called Hnry. And we can put a lot of information in here about the client. So we might have an email address for this client. Maybe that's me. You can say whether or not you went through a recruiter. And then you have a whole bunch of really useful quote options and invoice options. So where do you want quotes and invoices to be sent to for this client? So you can send directly to the client, or maybe just to yourself, or to a recruiter or third party that you can add in up here. You can even attach a PDF copy of invoices to your emails when they get sent out, and then you can include sort of a client address. So you can add a client's address here if that's something that you want to include on your invoices. You've also got a bunch of other client options here. You've got different currencies. So if your client would like to be invoiced in different currencies, you can set that up here. And you can even set up things like purchase order numbers or reference numbers that will automatically get added to any invoice or quote for this client. So I'll just save this client for now. Then we have our payslip screen. So once you've been paid into your Hnry bank account, you can see all of your payslips here, and that will show a breakdown of all of the taxes that you've paid. Really useful. Every time you get paid, you'll get a notification from us, either an email or a notification to your phone, and you can come in and see the deductions that have been made and what's been transferred through to your personal bank account. So expenses and purchases. The first thing you'll see when you come to this the first time is about telling us about your pre-Hnry business expenses. So if you click this button here, pre-Hnry expenses, you can actually go and tell us about any expenses you've had to date this financial year, and we can make sure that they all get taken into account when we come to file your taxes. So really useful if you're coming across from another accounting software or from a previous accountant, that it's really easy to get up and running and tell us about the expenses you've earned prior to Hnry. Once you start getting paid into your Hnry bank account, we'll also ask you about your income prior to Hnry, and that's all to make sure that we get your tax rates right going forward. So it's really easy to create expense here. I won't go through, I'll do another video on actually creating expenses, but it's a really simple process. You literally just either snap a receipt on your phone or upload it here, and all the information gets entered for you. So it's a very, very quick process. So let's take a quick look through the My Account menu. You have your profile. Now, your Hnry profile is really where you can set up your name, your preferred name. So if you have a name that's not necessarily your legal name, you can add that here. You can also add things like date of birth and home address, as well as you can set the default number of due date days for your invoices. So every time you create an invoice, we'll automatically follow up with that client if they're late paying. So you can set the default number of days that you want them to have before we start to pick up with them and see if they're going to pay. You can also add a trading name and even a logo that will appear on all of your invoices and quotes. The services screen, everyone starts with a single service that's created automatically. That's just the name of the job that you do. But if you're someone who creates invoices, you might want to have a set of different services that you can pull onto your invoice. So you might have a sort of a 1-day service. It could be 10 days. This could actually be a list of goods that you sell. If you're an artist, for instance, you might have different prices of pieces. And you can just open this up and actually just add in things like prices excluding GST. You can even set different job types against this. So maybe this is like a 1-day workshop that I'm working on. And that means whenever I create an invoice, I can pull that 1-day workshop in. I've got a default price for it, and it will appear on all my invoices and quotes if I want to. You can also customize it directly on the invoice itself, so you don't feel that you have to set up a lot of these before you can get going with invoicing. We also have our allocations area where you can allocate a percentage of your income to go to anywhere, so any bank account. So every time you get paid, you can pay 2% to your mum or 3% to your rent, however you like. And we have a bunch of pre-built options there for various platforms, investment platforms, as well as GST repayments and income tax repayments for perhaps old debts from before joining Hnry. And you get a lot of options when you set these up. So each allocation, you allocate a percentage of your income. Maybe I'm going to pay my mum, and allocation percentage is 10%. But maybe I only want to say up to a maximum of $100 each week. So I can set a cap, I can set limits. And once I start paying into my Hnry bank account, we can even get a little graph that appears here that will show you how much you've paid towards this allocation over the last few months, which is really useful for tracking how much you're paying. Perhaps you're paying a set amount of rent each week or each month. And this removes the need to set up things like direct debits, which, as we know, when you're self-employed, it's not ideal to have a fixed day of the month when money comes out of your account. Next, we have our income sources. So if you have other income sources that don't come through Hnry, so for example, if you had a salary job, or if you had investment income that isn't getting paid through Hnry, you should add these in here, and we make sure that that gets taken into account when setting your tax rate. So it's really, really important that if you are earning income that isn't coming through Hnry, as in not self-employed income, that you set this up and give us an estimate of how much you'll be earning. So we need to take that into account when setting your tax rates. Next, we have your financial details page. So obviously you need to tell us where you'd like to be paid once the taxes have been deducted. But you can also add in various other things. So if you're already registered for GST, we saw that in the sign up questions, you can flag that here. You can even flag if you work part-time. That obviously can have an impact on your tax rate. So just good for us to know. And so what we'll do, I'm just going to create a quick invoice to show you how that works. So we're back in the invoices screen. And you'll see I've created a new invoice. It's already brought in my one-day workshop. Let's say I'll add in a price here of $100. And if I'm GST registered, it's automatically going to add the GST onto this. I don't need to enter in my GST number separately. I don't need to put any calculations in. It's automatically going to apply the right GST if I'm GST registered. And what I can also do is I can set up recurring invoicing. So I can say that this invoice repeats fortnightly on Mondays for 10 occurrences. So if I'm doing this work continually, it will automatically send out invoices to my clients as soon as the new kind of date falls around. So really, really useful. You can set them up, I think it's weekly, fortnightly, or monthly. So really useful if you're maybe doing some monthly invoices to a client and it's exactly the same information. You can just have Hnry dispatch automated invoices. So now that I've set up my invoice, I can preview what it looks like. So that will just show me just a little small snippet of what the invoice will look like when it's sent. And once I'm happy, I can just click the send button here. And it says who it's going to be sent to. Your clients have the option to pay by a credit card at no extra cost to you. There is a processing surcharge for your client paying by credit card. And so if they're not comfortable doing that, they can just pay through direct bank transfer. It's really easy, just like any other banking transfer they would do. And once I'm happy, I click confirm, and that's it. That invoice has been sent. You'll see there's a status icon here, which tells you that the invoice has been sent. Now, once your client actually opens that invoice, that will change to a little eye, and you can see there how many times your client has opened your invoice and when the most recent time was. So really useful for seeing that your clients have opened the invoice and obviously have kind of looked through. So we can also have a look at our recurring option here, which tells us that we have this client name for Hnry, where this invoice is repeating fortnightly on a Monday. And it says here, I've sent 1 of 10 invoices with 9 scheduled remaining. Perhaps if I wanted to skip one, I can just click this skip button here, and I can skip the next occurrence in that sequence. So really useful if you're managing this across multiple clients. Really easy to set up recurring invoices. So we'll just flick back to the dashboard. Now, once you start getting paid, this will start to fill up with really useful information. So obviously we can see we've got some outstanding invoices. If I raise some expenses, you'll see a little donut chart of all the expenses that I raised there. And down here in the bottom left, once you start getting paid into your Hnry bank account, this will start to show your income over time. So starting to show how you track your income, you'll be able to see how much you're earning month on month. As well as on this right-hand side, you'll be able to see that all the times that you've been paid and link directly into all of your payslips. All right, as ever, if you ever have any questions, do reach out to the team. We're always available on live chat or on email. So yeah, hopefully that was a useful little run through of Hnry, but if we can be of any other help, just let us know.